Do you think Socrates actually existed? Would it matter if he did not? There's something about history that some people take for granted. I hear people say things like, oh, people tell lies now, oh, there's fake news, or there's these lies about this, or these lies about that other thing. But I think, on the contrary, we are currently living in a time, at least that we know of, where we are able to keep a better track of what actually exists than ever before. Like, for example, if you have somebody right now that's doing something rather magnificent and big time that you think is going to be actually historical, in 100 years from now, the people will probably be able to go to that person's Facebook page or that person's Instagram or just find all sorts of videos and images and correspondence about this person's life and get a good idea of what this person was outside of their regular day-to-day life. That's if we don't have some catastrophic societal ending event like a meteor or something hitting the earth and returning us to some pre-Stone Age kind of environment, like that Younger Dryas effect kind of hypothesis thing. But anyway, so if we have that, we have the ability to know this person was real. But then we also have the ability to start having these deep fakes where we can create these characters and create these beings that can be actually fake versions or artificial versions of people that actually exist. So you have somebody that has a very popular podcast, has hours and hours of videos out there, then you create a deep fake of him saying something that they didn't actually say that ends up being rather amazing and effective, and then in the future people are like, oh, was that actually them or was that someone else? So there's that, and then there's also the situation where you can just have artificial intelligence where this is something just coming together and putting together certain ideas and things that could be life-changing, and then people wonder, was that an actual human being? But what I'm asking you is, does it matter if that thing actually counts? Why do we look back at historical beings and think there's actually more accurate history back then? And I think that's due to our attachment with religions. We think that these religious beings had to have existed. For some people, they claim to be more certain about things that happened at the start of the universe than they are about things that could have happened to them just yesterday. They have more skepticism about that. I have read about different religions, different theologies. I was raised Christian, then I was more non-denominational, then spiritual, then I became an atheist, and now I'm a-religious. But I still find some importance in the actual content of these various dogmatic books and characters and things like that. They make a lot of sense. They're very important to understand human nature and human culture, human society, to understand why we are where we are. Like here with Socrates, it says, who was Socrates? This is from biography.com, scholar Socrates. You can check that out. It says Socrates was a scholar, teacher, and philosopher born in ancient Greece. His Socratic method laid the groundwork for Western systems of logic and philosophy. When the political climate of Greece turned against him, Socrates was sentenced to death by hemlock poisoning in 399 BC. That's before Common Era, before Christ. He accepted this judgment rather than fleeing into exile. Now, would it change much if you found out this wasn't actually true, if you found out there was no evidence for it? He's best known for the Socratic method. I'm going to read what that is. For Socrates, Athens was a classroom, and he went about asking questions to the elite and common man alike, seeking to arrive at political and ethical truths. Socrates didn't lecture about what he knew. In fact, he claimed to be ignorant because he had no ideas, but wise because he recognized his own ignorance. He asked questions to his fellow Athenians in a dialectic method, the Socratic method, which compelled the audience to think through a problem to a logical conclusion. Sometimes the answer seemed so obvious, it made Socrates' opponents look foolish. For this, his Socratic method was admired by some and vilified by others. During Socrates' life, Athens was going through a dramatic transition from hegemony in the classical world to its decline after a humiliating defeat by Sparta in the Peloponnesian War. Athenians entered a period of instability and doubt about their identity and place in the world. As a result, they clung to past glories, notions of wealth, and a fixation on physical beauty. Socrates attacked these values with its insistent emphasis on greater importance of the mind. While many of the Athenians admired Socrates' challenge to Greek conventional wisdoms and the humorous way he went about it, and felt he threatened their way of life and uncertain future. And then there was a trial, then there was a death, and this is Socrates. This is the character of Socrates, and this is a character that has been instrumental to what we call Western civilization, and I am one who does believe that the West is the best. And though I do think this for many reasons, I think I might disagree on how detached some people who also say this may think the creation of the West was from the grander world. I think it was partially with the awareness of the other world, yet the way things happen, this had to come from the West in the way that history has been. But if I was to find out that Socrates was mythical, Socrates was something like Heracles or Odysseus, something that was just completely admitted to just be a complete myth that was fabrication that was made up, I would still value and gain from everything that the Socratic method stands for. I would still be able to find him as important today as I do thinking he was a real flesh and blood human being where I can go and say this is where Socrates literally walked. And from spending some time in Rome, I had that feeling while you're walking around and you're thinking like, wow, this is literally where I'm walking. When you're walking into the Pantheon, when you're walking by the Colosseum, when you're walking just the random streets, you're thinking actual great historical figures literally walked in these locations. It's something to take in, but I still see them as human beings, and there is something about that. But for some people, for some believers, when you believe in different religions, what do you find out Muhammad was made up? If you find out Jesus was made up, if you find out this Shiva and all these characters in Mahabharata never really existed, how would that change a true believer's belief in those things? Would they no longer find those things valuable? And there's somebody who had a quote about Jesus who said that Jesus had to be a god, because if he wasn't a god, he would be a madman. And there is something that goes with that, where maybe it's time to question about the things that you believe in. How important is the attribution of the things that you value? Does it have to come from a human being? Does it have to come from a human being that you think of? If you are of a certain race and you have pride in this race, and then you find out, oh, this thing that we thought my race did came from somewhere else, this is something that you feel, this is something that is intrinsically part of our race, this is what gives my race a leg up on everybody else, then you find out it came from this other race that you thought was actually below you guys, but for some reason they stopped using it. Would you all of a sudden throw that thing down and be like, no, I'm not going to use that anymore, that came from this other race, it's lower people stuff? Or would you still just accept it and keep using it? I think it's a good question to answer about different things that you believe in. And I think for most actual believers, if they found out that their gods were not actual literal gods, I don't believe as many people who actually say, oh, without a God you'd be a sinner. Without the actual belief in this, people would just be committing sins and crimes and violent and all these things. I don't think so. I think if you actually wrote down the things that you think make you a better person due to your God, you'll be able to find you can follow those things without the belief in that supernatural, actual godly being. But that's just from my personal experience, my observation, and talking to other people who have also deconverted from their faiths. But yeah, that's it for now. This is part of my shorty series where I expand on short thoughts. Like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. Let me know, would it matter if Socrates was alive to you? There's also links to our merchandise store, also one-time donations on PayPal if you'd like to help me out. Probably going to open a dedicated website for my different various things, because I have a blog, I have art stuff. I want to consolidate everything into one and see how that works. Anyway, so that's it. Till next time. Goodbye.